2012, Houston, Texas. Doctors use robotic technology to perform complex heart surgery through incisions no larger than a keyhole. Chicago, Illinois. An amputee climbs 103 floors using a thought-controlled bionic leg. At the University of Iowa, researchers develop technology that fabricates custom body parts using 3D printers. In the last 100 years, scientific advances have dramatically improved mankind's ability to heal itself. More, in fact, than at any time in the last 5 centuries.
Throughout history, medicine is about correcting physical problems, restoring a patient to health, relieving suffering. We've seen tremendous advances over the last 3 decades, but there was a remarkable degree of sophistication and a surprisingly high success rate achieved by prehistoric surgeons. Many of the procedures of modern medicine are derivatives of the ancient operations.
Evidence of advanced medical procedures practiced in the ancient world has been found everywhere, from carvings on the walls of temples to skeletal remains all over the world. But just who were the practitioners of this extraordinary science? And where did their knowledge of the human body come from?
Most cultures around the world thought that if something was physically wrong with you, it probably also related to something perhaps spiritually wrong with you. And so we also find that physicians or healers very often were not just healing the body in our mundane sense, but also healing the soul. And therefore, they had to be somewhat of a religious figure as well.
To be a doctor in the ancient world, that you have some kind of special relationship with a god who has gifted you with the power to heal. A doctor was simultaneously a kind of tradesman and had kind of learned a skill, but also a sort of cultic figure as well who had an association with a god and would therefore use magical cures to deal with problems.
Our ancestors said that medicine came from the gods. Our ancestors have said that the gods really gave manuals as to how to be living healthy, how to restore health to the human individual. They realized something about our physical bodies which we are only beginning to understand once again.
Could it be that ancient healers were guided by alien beings? And if so, are recent advances in modern medicine actually a rediscovery of methods practiced thousands of years ago? Saqqara, Egypt. Here, across from this towering step pyramid, lies the physician's tomb, also known as the tomb of Ankh-Mahor. According to archaeologists, it was built more than 4,000 years ago for one of the most important officials of the ancient Egyptian civilization.
I'm taking you inside the physician's tomb, where you get a glimpse of how they performed complex medical and surgical operations in ancient times. But what's amazing about this tomb is that the physician, Ankh-Mahor, lived 4,300 years ago. And he performed very complex surgical and medical operations. We can see here a circumcision 2,000 years before the Bible. And here we see a scene of reflexology. We can see them muscling and flexing the muscles. Also here, an amazing operation, a surgical operation on the hand. It is even suggested that they may have had brain surgery, removing tumors. But where did they get the knowledge from? Well, they say that they got it from Thoth, the god of wisdom and science, who brought to them all the knowledge from the gods.
Known for his abilities in science, magic, and medicine, Thoth was worshipped for centuries as the god of wisdom and healing. According to ancient myth, this divine physician healed the eye of the Egyptian god Horus after his uncle Set gouged it out in an epic battle for power. As a result, the eye of Horus became an important symbol of restoration and good health. But was Thoth only a mythical deity, as mainstream scholars believe? Or might he have been something or someone who actually existed?
Ancient Egyptian medicine was anything but primitive. There are clear examples of energetic medicine that are beyond our technological capabilities. It seems as if these technologies were brought in and were given to them as a complete package, rather than something that developed out of a society that before then had been extremely primitive. And the Egyptians themselves said that Thoth was responsible for this.
Northern Turkey, 2010. While digging at an archaeological site in the Samsun province, archaeologists unearthed hundreds of skeletal remains and ancient skulls, dating back more than 4,000 years. Strangely, 14 of the skulls have large holes, providing what some scholars believe is proof that ancient man carried out a remarkably sophisticated type of brain surgery called cranial trepanation.
Trepanation is making an opening into the skull. We do it on a routine basis in today's neurosurgery to get exposure of the brain, to remove a tumor or remove a blood clot. But it was done in ancient times, probably to repair traumatic brain injuries from accidents and war injuries.
Ancient cultures did this all over the world, in Peru, in Europe, in Asia, in Africa. They were literally cutting holes in people's heads, successfully opening up their skulls, removing skull material, and then covering it up again. And the patients were surviving this and living long lives.
Even with the delicate and highly sophisticated tools in use today, neurosurgery is a complicated and risky procedure, one involving the body's most complex organ, the human brain.
Today's neurosurgery provides us with some remarkable new digital tools. We have what is the equivalent now of a GPS system that allows us to navigate around the intracranial space. We also are able to use preoperative imaging now to create an individual map of the brain and the brain function. Those maps are critical to do modern neurosurgery.
But how could an ancient civilization have learned such highly advanced methods for operating on a human brain, hundreds of years before such procedures were even attempted in other parts of the world? Perhaps the answers can be found by looking at a collection of human skulls discovered a century ago near the Peruvian Andes. Here, at the San Diego Museum of Man, is an extensive display of pre-Columbian antiquities, including one of the largest collections of skulls in the world. Dr. Tori Randall, a chief paleoanthropologist, has spent years studying the ancient practice of trepanation.
These skulls are about 1,000 years old. They're Incan skulls, and they're special because they have trepanations, and you can see from the hole right here in the head, they've had skull surgery performed on them. It seems likely that a lot of these trepanations were happening based on warfare or healing some type of traumatic injury. They seem to have performed the actual trepanations in parts of the skull where there wasn't a lot of cranial musculature, which would have made it more difficult. One thing that they used were tumies, which are usually made out of bronze or copper, and they're this little curvilinear knife. This is definitely a very well planned out practice, very successful, and it happened well before the advent of modern medicine. And the fact that so many individuals survived meant that they were very good at it.
It's remarkable that we see evidence of healing and recovery and survival in so many of the archaeological specimens, the skulls, that show signs of bone healing. They must have had a good sense of meticulous technique, but it had to be a rough ordeal for the individual patient.
According to Dr. Randall's findings, the Inca surgeons were also skilled at avoiding parts of the brain that would have damaged important nerves and affected motor skills.
What this means is that our ancient ancestors had extraordinary information about the brain. It means that they had detailed knowledge about human anatomy way beyond what we normally attribute to them. It involves an extraordinary amount of scientific information.
All over the world, we see skulls with curious small holes drilled in. In these ancient cultures, the practice of trepanation was often said to have been given to them by the gods. So it's possible that extraterrestrial technology had the ability to see into the brain,
The Amazon jungle, Peru. Stretching from the Andes Mountains to the eastern shores of Brazil, this rainforest is home to more than 80,000 species of plants, many of which shamans and religious healers have consumed for thousands of years. As a way to access realms they say are inhabited by otherworldly beings.
In the Amazon, one of the shaman's jobs, aside from going to the other world and speaking with the spirits, is to find the plants right here on Earth that can heal the people of his tribe. And in the Amazonian belief systems, each plant in the jungle has its own spirit. And one of the shaman's gifts is that he can communicate with these plant spirits.
Originating in the central Andes of South America, ayahuasca, meaning the vine of the souls, is a psychedelic brew consisting of 2 different types of plants cooked with water.
And this is drunk by the shaman, but in order to enter the spirit world, to gain information about diseases, to foresee the future, to carry out a healing for somebody. We know some of the history of ayahuasca because archaeologists have found artifacts from the rainforest which date back 3,500 or 4,000 years. But those are only the surviving artifacts that they've found. Potentially, this could go back to the beginning of time.
Ayahuasca contains dimethyltryptamine, or DMT, one of the most powerful hallucinogens known to man. But strangely, this chemical compound only works when consumed under precise conditions.
Ingest DMT, it's inactivated in the intestine by certain enzymes. So that in order to get the DMT to be activated and to be able to be absorbed, they had to combine it with other plants.
Ayahuasca contains a mixture of 2 plants. There's actually quite subtle and sophisticated knowledge of plants goes into the preparation, because these 2 things separately will not work. You have to mix them together, and let's not forget that there's 150,000 different species of plants and trees in the Amazon. It's really quite an amazing achievement of ancient chemistry to bring these 2 plants together to produce a highly psychoactive visionary brew.
But how did ancient people living in the jungles of Peru over 3,000 years ago, with tens of thousands of plants to choose from, figure out that combining these 2 particular plants would produce these powerful visions? According to the mythology of the Ashwer people of the Amazon, their ancestors didn't discover this on their own, but were guided by extraterrestrial beings.
The shamans communicated with their spirits and were told to go into the jungle and turn 2 corners, as the myth goes. And then they would find this plant, and they brought that back to the village, prepared it in the appropriate way.
The oral tradition says that ayahuasca is a linkage to the upper world. And it is entirely possible that they were given this gift by their own gods, which may be extraterrestrials.
If the Ashware story of how their ancestors discovered ayahuasca is true, could they have been guided not by spirits, but by extraterrestrial beings? Beings who communicated with them on another plane of reality. Between 1990 and 1995, scientists at the University of New Mexico administered DMT, the active ingredient in ayahuasca, to 60 volunteers and discovered shocking results.
Medical researchers actually administered DMT to patients in a controlled medical setting, and they had exactly the same experiences as those reported in the jungles of South America and elsewhere who were experiencing ayahuasca.
Ayahuasca users typically experience hallucinations in the visual form, and a lot of them say that they see other beings, and a lot of them say that they get messages sent to them from these beings.
In several cases, those intelligent entities said to them roughly the following: "We're so pleased you've discovered this technology. Now we can communicate with you more often."
Bighorn Mountain Range, Wyoming. Nearly 10,000 feet up on a desolate peak that is only accessible during the brief summer months, lies a structure known as the Bighorn Medicine Wheel. This massive stone circle measures over 75 feet in diameter and contains 28 spokes representing the lunar cycle. By studying the astronomical alignments of the stones, researchers were able to date the construction of the site to approximately 1200 AD. Although it is held sacred by over 60 different Native American tribes, just who built the medicine wheel remains a mystery.
So the Bighorn Medicine Wheel is significant to a lot of tribes because it has this connection to a lot of different traditions in terms of star knowledge and star power and ceremony.
According to the oral tradition of the Crow tribe, the 19th century leader Red Plume made a journey to the medicine wheel as a young man that shaped his destiny as a powerful shaman and chief.
The medicine wheel, you connect to particular constellations that are kind of like vortexes between certain star energy and certain earth energy. And the medicine wheel seems to be creating some place that marks the particular spot at a particular time where those star energies and earth energies and human energy come together.
During what the Crow tribe call his vision quest, Red Plume claimed to have encountered a mysterious race of beings he called Little People.
He was visited, he said, by these little men who then took him inside the earth into some kind of a vortex wormhole. There, they taught him secrets of medicine.
There are lots of stories about little people in native tradition across the Americas. The little people come from another planet and they kind of play around with human beings, but they're also protectors of them, teaching them even through that playfulness.
Is it possible that this medicine man was actually meeting with extraterrestrials who then taught him some medical secrets and then allowed him to return back to his people?
These stories
didn't originate in our ancestors' imagination, there is a core of truth to all those stories. And so those beings, are they in reality of extraterrestrial origin, something physical, flesh and blood? Absolutely. Those beings are the progenitors of knowledge.
Could the stories of the Bighorn medicine wheel be describing extraterrestrial contact? Is this where shamans like Red Plume acquired wisdom from otherworldly beings? In cultures throughout the world, there are stories of shamanic initiation at the hands of so-called spirits. Oftentimes, the process is described as dangerous. In fact, many healers are said to be taken against their will for this instruction.
When shamans narrate their life stories, they usually do not say, well, I chose to be a shaman. The healer does not choose her or his profession. They are chosen by the spirits.
A shaman is usually called, and there's some sort of wound that the shaman sustains. It can be any bizarre malady, being struck by lightning, epileptic fits, bad accident, anything that wounds the person, enables them to go inward. It's quite a hardship, you know, it's not something that anybody who really knows about it would readily undertake.
Once the spirits have got you, you either die or remain permanently sick or become a shaman. There aren't a lot of ways out. You often go mad for a bit or fall sick for a bit as the spirits take possession of you. And then you go through a visionary process in which, for example, quite often you feel your entire body being taken apart and then put back together again. And when you're back together again, you're starting to acquire the abilities to travel through time and space.